I am Dr. Gitanjali Bade, working as an assistant professor in the Department of Physiology. This is module number 17, gas transport and pulmonary circulation. The specific learning objectives for this module are: at the end of this lecture, students should be able to describe physiologic anatomy of pulmonary circulatory system, describe characteristics of pulmonary circulation, describe regional variation of circulation and ventilation perfusion ratio, compare the composition of alveolar air, inspired and expired air, list the methods of transport of oxygen in blood, draw and explain oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Other objectives are: list the ways in which CO2 is transported in blood and classify types of hypoxia with examples. The lung has two types of circulation. First is high pressure and low flow circulation. It supplies systemic arterial blood to the trachea, the bronchial tree, including terminal bronchioles, the supporting tissue of the lung, including vasculature, and second one is a low pressure high flow circulation that supplies venous blood from all parts of the body to the alveolar capillaries, where oxygen is added and carbon dioxide is removed. The pulmonary artery, which receives blood from the right ventricle and its arterial branches carry blood to the alveolar capillaries for gas exchange, and the pulmonary veins then return the blood to the left atrium to be pumped by the left ventricle into systemic circulation. The characteristics of pulmonary artery and its branches are: first one is it is thin with a wall thickness only 1/3 that of the aorta. Its branches are very short and have large diameter. Their walls are thin and distensible, and because of all these characteristics, pulmonary arterial circulation has a large compliance and it can accommodate large volume of blood without much rise in pressure. Pressure in the right ventricle and the systemic vasculature are as follows. The right ventricular pressure is about 25 millimeter of mercury, and the diastolic pressure averages about 0 to 1 millimeter of mercury, values that are only 1/5 of those of the left ventricle. Pressures in the pulmonary circulation are: the systolic pressure is only 25 millimeter of mercury, diastolic pressure is 8 millimeter of mercury, while mean arterial pressure is 15 millimeter of mercury. The mean pulmonary capillary pressure is about 10 millimeter of mercury, whereas oncotic pressure is 25 millimeter of mercury. So, the resulting inward directed pressure gradient of 15 millimeter of mercury, which is very less, will keep the alveoli free of fluid. The mean pressure in the left atrium and the major pulmonary veins averages about 2 millimeter of mercury in the recumbent human being. It varies from as low as 1 millimeter of mercury, and it can be as high as 5 millimeter of mercury. Gravity has its effect on the pulmonary circulation. In upright position, the upper portions of the lungs are very well above the level of heart and bases are below it. So, it has effect on it. So, upper portions receive less blood supply as compared to the basal portions. So, gravity has the effect on pulmonary ventilation also. In upright position, the intrapleural pressure at apex is less negative as compared to the base of the lungs. It has the effect and it leads to more distension of alveoli at the apex and less ventilation per minute as compared to the basis of the lungs. Ventilation perfusion ratio is the ratio of pulmonary ventilation to the pulmonary blood flow. It is also called as VP ratio. and the ventilation perfusion ratio for the whole lung at rest is about 0.8. Gravity also has the effect on alveolar ventilation perfusion ratio, and marked differences are observed in various parts of normal lung due to the gravity. As noted above, both ventilation and perfusion decline from the base to the apex linearly in upright position, but VP ratio is high at apex of the lungs. The pressure exerted by any one gas in a mixture of gases is called as partial pressure of that gas in that mixture, and it is directly proportional to concentration of gas molecules. It is given by the formula, that is partial pressure is equal to concentration of dissolved gas divided by solubility coefficient. As carbon dioxide is more soluble than oxygen, that is, it is 20 times as soluble as oxygen, the partial pressure of CO2 is less than 1/20th of that exerted by oxygen. Gas diffuses from areas of high pressure to areas of low pressure, with the rate of diffusion depends upon concentration of gradient and nature of the barrier between the two areas. When a mixture of gases comes in contact with a liquid and equilibrates with it, each gas in the mixture dissolves in the liquid to an extent determined by its partial pressure and its solubility in the fluid. In the steady state, inspired air mixes with the alveolar gas. It replaces the oxygen that has entered the blood and dilute the CO2 that has entered the alveoli. A part of this mixture is expired. The O2 content of the alveolar gas then falls and its CO2 content rises until the next inspiration. Because the volume of gas in the alveoli is about 2 liter at the end of expiration, which is also called as functional residual capacity, each 350 ml increment of inspired and expired air has relatively little effect on partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Indeed, the composition of alveolar gas remains remarkably constant not only at rest but also under a variety of other conditions. Diffusion of gases takes place across alveolar capillary membrane. Blood takes only 0.75 seconds to travel the pulmonary capillaries at rest. The time required for each gas to reach equilibrium with blood depends upon the reaction with substances in blood. The volume of gas taken up by blood is flow limited in case of nitric oxide. Nitric oxide does not react and reaches equilibrium in about 0.1 second. In this situation, the amount of nitric oxide taken up is not limited by diffusion, but it depends upon the amount of blood flowing through the pulmonary capillaries. So, its uptake is called as flow limited. The take up of this gas can be also be the diffusion limited in case of carbon monoxide. Carbon monoxide is taken up by hemoglobin in the red blood cells at such a high rate that partial pressure of carbon monoxide in the capillaries stays very low and equilibrium is never achieved in 0.75 seconds in pulmonary capillaries. Therefore, the transfer of carbon monoxide is not limited by perfusion at rest and instead it is diffusion limited. So, another way of transport is perfusion limited. Oxygen is intermediate between nitric oxide and carbon monoxide and it is taken up by hemoglobin, but much less avidly than carbon monoxide, and it reaches equilibrium with capillaries in blood in about 0.3 second. Thus, its uptake is perfusion limited. Diffusing capacity is the volume of gas that will diffuse through the respiratory membrane each minute for a partial pressure difference of 1 millimeter of mercury. Diffusing capacity for carbon monoxide is taken as the index of diffusing capacity, as its uptake is diffusion limited. Normal value for diffusing capacity for carbon monoxide is 25 ml per minute per millimeter of mercury. It increases during exercise up to 3 folds in normal persons. The PO2 of alveolar air is 100 millimeter of mercury and that of blood entering capillaries is 40 millimeter of mercury. Oxygen diffuses across the respiratory membrane and PO2 of blood rises to 97 millimeter of mercury. It falls to 95 millimeter of mercury in the aorta. Similarly, partial pressure of CO2 of venous blood is 46 millimeter of mercury and that of alveolar air is 40 millimeter of mercury. CO2 moves from blood to the alveoli and PCO2 of blood leaving the lungs is 40 millimeter of mercury. Oxygen diffuses from alveoli into pulmonary blood and then gets transported to tissue capillaries. It is transported in two forms. First is combined with hemoglobin and second is dissolved in plasma. So, what is the role of hemoglobin in oxygen transport? About 97% of the oxygen transported from lungs to the tissue is in the form of combination with hemoglobin, which is present in RBCs. Hemoglobin is made up of 4 subunits. Each subunit contains a heme moiety, which is a porphyrin ring complex having one atom of ferrous ion. Each of the 4 ion atoms in hemoglobin can reversibly bind with one oxygen molecule. When PO2 is high, as in pulmonary capillaries, oxygen binds with hemoglobin, but when PO2 is low, as in tissue capillaries, oxygen is released from hemoglobin. Oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve relates percentage saturation of the oxygen carrying capacity of hemoglobin to the partial pressure of oxygen. This curve has a characteristic stigmoid shape. Because of the combination of the first heme in the hemoglobin molecule with oxygen increases the affinity of second heme for oxygen, and oxygenation of second increases the affinity for the third, and it increases so on. So that the affinity of hemoglobin for the fourth oxygen molecule is many times than that for the first. It leads to sigmoid shape of the oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve. Now, what are the factors that shift the oxygen hemoglobin curve to the right? That means it increases release of the oxygen to the tissue. First is the increased carbon dioxide concentration, then increased temperature, decreased pH of blood and increased 2,3 biphosphoglycerate in RBCs. All these conditions lead to release of more oxygen to the tissues, which are observed in exercise. When blood is equilibrated with 100% of oxygen, the normal hemoglobin becomes 100% saturated. When fully saturated, each gram of normal hemoglobin contains 1.39 ml of oxygen. However, blood normally contains small amounts of inactive hemoglobin derivatives, and the measured value in vivo is lower, that is 1.34 ml of oxygen. In arterial blood, where hemoglobin is 97% saturated, oxygen content is 19.4 ml per 100 ml per 100 ml. In venous blood, where hemoglobin is 75% saturated, oxygen content is 14.4 ml per 100 ml. Thus, 5 ml of oxygen is transported from the lungs to the tissues by 100 ml of blood. So, what is the Bohr effect? The decrease in oxygen affinity of hemoglobin when the pH of blood falls is called as Bohr effect. Only 3% oxygen is transported to the tissues in dissolved state. At PO2 of 95 mm of mercury, 0.29 ml of oxygen is dissolved in plasma. At PO2 of 40 mm of mercury, only 0.12 ml oxygen remains dissolved in plasma. So, 0.17 ml of O2 is transported in the dissolved state to the tissues by each 100 ml of arterial blood. Carbon dioxide is transported in blood in various forms, like in dissolved state, as second one is bicarbonate ions, and third is in combination with hemoglobin and plasma proteins. In the dissolved state, only 0.3 ml, that is 7% of total CO2 is transported by 100 ml of blood. The amount of carbon dioxide dissolved in plasma at 45 mm of mercury is 2.7 ml per deciliter, and the amount of carbon dioxide dissolved in plasma at 40 mm of mercury is 2.4 ml per deciliter. As bicarbonate ions, it is also transported, and this mode of transport accounts for 70% of carbon dioxide transported from tissues to the lung. The CO2 that diffuses into red blood cells is rapidly hydrated to H2CO3, and because of the presence of carbonic anhydrous. The H2CO3 dissociates to H plus and HCO3 minus ions, and the H plus ions are buffered primarily by hemoglobin, while the HCO3 minus enters the plasma, and about 70% of HCO3 minus formed in the red cells enter the plasma. The excess of bicarbonate ions leaves the red cells in exchange for chloride, and this is called as chloride shift. This process is mediated by anion exchanger 1, which is the major membrane protein in the red blood cells. Because of this, the chloride content of red blood cells in venous blood is significantly greater than that in arterial blood. So, what is the Haldane effect? Combination of oxygen with hemoglobin in the lungs causes hemoglobin to become stronger acid, and it displaces carbon dioxide from blood into alveoli. It is called as Haldane effect. Carbon dioxide reacts directly with plasma proteins and amine radicals of hemoglobin molecule to form carbaminohemoglobin. This is a reversible reaction and accounts for 20 to 30% of carbon dioxide transported by blood. Hypoxia is deficiency of oxygen at tissue level. It could be due to inadequate supply of oxygen to the tissues or inability of the tissues to utilize available oxygen. There are various types of hypoxia, and these are: first is hypoxic hypoxia, second is anemic hypoxia, third is stagnant hypoxia, and hypoxic hypoxia. Hypoxic hypoxia, when PO2 of arterial blood is reduced, it is called as hypoxic hypoxia. The causes for hypoxic hypoxia are low PO2 in inspired air, hypoventilation, and diffusion defects at lungs or ventilation perfusion mismatch. The common examples are difficulty in breathing at high altitudes. For hypoxic hypoxia, the treatment is oxygen therapy, and it is the best treatment of choice. In anemic hypoxia, PO2 of arterial blood is normal, but hemoglobin to carry oxygen is inadequate. Conditions that lead to anemic hypoxia are anemia, then carbon monoxide poisoning, presence of altered hemoglobin like methemoglobin, and the treatment of choice for anemic hypoxia is oxygen therapy. It increases dissolved oxygen, and for carbon monoxide poisoning also it is the best treatment, and oxygen is given in hyperbaric form. As carbon monoxide has high affinity, which is 10 times greater than the affinity for oxygen, and it will replace the carbon monoxide. Next type of hypoxia is stagnant hypoxia, which occurs due to decreased blood flow to the tissues. It is seen in heart failure, shock, and vascular obstruction. Oxygen therapy is not much useful in this type of hypoxia, as underlying cause needs to be treated. In histotoxic hypoxia, tissue cannot utilize oxygen despite of normal oxygen supply. It is present in cyanide poisoning and severe diphtheria. Oxygen therapy is not much useful in this type of hypoxia. However, hyperbaric oxygen therapy is beneficial. Hypoxia has its effects at cellular, tissue and organ level. It can alter cellular transcription factors and thus protein expression. It has effect on brain function and produces symptoms like dizziness, drowsiness and headache. It can affect ventilation. Long-term hypoxia can result in cell and tissue death. The summary for this module is the pressure gradient in pulmonary circular system is much less than that in systemic circulation. Both ventilation and perfusion are greater at base of the lung as compared to apex, but ventilation perfusion ratio is lower at base as compared to apex. Partial pressures of oxygen and carbon dioxide at alveoli and pulmonary capillary determine net flow of these gases. The amount of oxygen present in blood is determined by the amount dissolved and amount bound to hemoglobin. 1 molecule of hemoglobin binds with 4 molecules of oxygen. CO2 in blood is rapidly converted to H2CO3 due to activity of enzyme carbonic anhydrase. It also readily forms carbamino compounds with blood proteins. It is also transported in dissolved form. Hypoxia is deficiency of oxygen at tissue level. There are 4 types of hypoxia and they are hypoxia, anemic hypoxia, stagnant hypoxia and histotoxic hypoxia. Oxygen therapy is most useful in hypoxic hypoxia. The web links and the additional reading material is provided here, and thanks for this module.